genes have been through selective breeding. You don't need that. People talk about GMOs and all that. No need for that. Because we're starting with animals that, in aquaculture today, very few animals are selectively bred. There's a long way to go for selective breeding. You don't need anything like GMOs. Like in the United States, they got past a GMO salmon. Nobody's going to use it. Nobody cares. Okay, so there's a lot of money being wasted. Sorry to put that on TV. So we don't need to do those sorts of things. You can get a lot of gain in selective breeding. Like I said, in selective breeding, your first round you can get 20%. It's typical, 20% improvement right away. So make me look good. If we started breeding prawn, I get 20% improvement. So I would say, wow, you're a genius.
So how do you protect your breed? I mean, if you have a franchise system and people get those
exactly, that's
breed,
just like I said. You know, we give them a very narrow genetic range, so they can't take around. The key to a breeding program,
give them the smart part of it,
and you don't give them the pedigrees. You don't tell them like, is this one related to this one or not? We don't know.
So the mothers, you keep the mothers.
It's just like, you're right. No, we keep the history, the genetic history of those animals, because you need both. You need both the animal and you need the genetic history.
Okay.
It's just like you know your parents all the way down the line. And then, right, hopefully, you wouldn't marry your sister because you know that would cause breeding. But let's say your sister and you met at some point, you didn't know that you were brothers and sisters.
So
it's the same thing. You made.
So the franchisee cannot continue to breed on.
They can probably steal the system. They can probably steal the feed, but they can't steal the animals. So there's always one component that they can't take. So that's what protects the intellectual property. Because patents and all that are not going to do it. Because in aquaculture, everything's a process. There's nothing that's patented in aquaculture. There really isn't. But you can protect your property in biological ways. Very interesting going on here. But they put these in here to increase the surface area and increase space. You see how they're just kind of hanging on those places? Yeah. Now, if we put shrimp in here with no baskets or no thing, they'll all be just crowding up each other, and then they'll be bothering, they'll be eating each other, you know, all that kind of stuff. You do this, and they have places to hide. It makes them use a three-dimensional space, like fish do. As a matter of fact, in shrimp culture, they measure shrimp culture densities in square meters. With fish, they measure it in cubic meters. But actually in fish, when you start breeding the animals and they become more domesticated, they start and putting them in higher densities, they magically start using the three-dimensional space. So when I was working in the consortium, we were actually talking about measuring shrimp in cubic meters rather than in square meters. But this is all to create additional places to put more animals in here.
I can't see that many animals. Is there no production going on in this?
I don't know what's in here right now. How many animals there? I know that they were culling the animals out. So that the production process that they use is sort of this it's phased, and then they partial harvest. So in this tank, let's say we have these animals in here. These look like they're about 6-gram animals. That's the first phase of production. So they go through here, and they go on that table that you're watching, right? And they cull out some animals, and they sell them. And then the remaining animals they put into the next stage of production. By doing, and then they do the same thing in the next cycle, in the next tank. So every so many weeks, every 4 weeks roughly, you go through that kind of process. Okay, and so what that does again is that you're with a large number of tanks. So some of the animals are going out and being sold. They're also, you cull these animals too because they have a very differential growth of them. You've got the males. The males, they tend to, see there's a big one right there. And so those are called the blue claws. There's different hierarchy. You have the blue claws, the orange claws, and like that. So if you have them in a pond, which is the way it's normally done, the big ones will stunt the growth of the other ones because I'm the big guy and nobody else. I mean, they put out hormones or whatever it is, and they don't allow the other ones to grow as well. But if you cull animals out and you keep them all the same size, they'll grow all at the same size. So this partial harvesting and movement through the phase is actually very good by keeping the animals, the sizes of the animals the same so they grow to their maximum.
How do you practically select them?
To do that, they do it by hand. Labor's cheap. Yeah. some animals are going to put back into the ponds, and the other ones, the smaller ones, are going to be sale. This is part of that phased production.
That's for grading, or
It's both for grading and also, you start out with very high densities of animals, okay, and then you grow them up to a certain size and you take some out, and the remainder ones you put into the next phase. This way you have product coming out.
At the same time, we got, animals that you're putting in to grow even bigger. You can't grow them all.
I'd like us to get involved with some of the local universities as well too, and actually start the program, an aquatic university program out there where we'll be training people, but also be training our workforce as well too.
So it will be kind of a agri-food, aquaculture training school.
Exactly.
thing.
One of the added value things that I'll be
Both
doing.
both to produce leaders who can train others and to produce the others, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So you pick the cream of your crop out of there, and they're going to be your kind of your mid-level managers, and then they're going to be the trainers of the technical staff.
one question. You said that you will develop this as a profit center.
Right.
So how do you make the science profitable?
How to make the science? Yeah, good question. Well, a lot of the things, when I was at the Oceanic Institute, we were a nonprofit organization, and it was all funded by congressional earmarks. So we had to change that organization over to a profit-making center. One of the ways we do that is by developing new technologies, products, and services. Okay, new technologies we'll be developing, like I mentioned, breeding program. Okay, sales of those animals. We can sell them just like CP is and any other company is doing. So you can get a lot through that kind of sale. There's also sales of new diets that we can develop, formulations that we can develop. Okay. So those are other types of technologies and other products that we can make. There might be other species that we might be able to put in here. Okay. And then the other services we can do, extension services. One of the things that doesn't cost a lot of money is to actually go out and train local farmers, Chinese farmers, on how to do these sorts of things. Not this type of system, but train them on very simple water quality, type measurements and all that. So the government here would pay for that kind of stuff. To do that. And then there's analytical services that we can provide, water quality measurements, analysis, and all that kind of stuff. So, and again, like the extension.
Selling
knowledge that does not interfere with the intellectual property of the company. Okay? It's selling basic knowledge, which I view as something that is a safety for us, because I don't want farmers around our sites that don't know what they're doing. Yeah. And most farmers in China don't know what they're doing. The average lifespan of a farmer in China is less than 5 years. And that person has learned from the person before them, who's learned from the person before them who doesn't know anything. I've been on farms in China, and I asked the people, why are you doing what you're doing? And they said, that's what I was taught from the guy who owned the farm before me. So there's not a lot of knowledge. They're just doing what they've done in the past. Right. So the certifications that we would be getting on animals is biological, environmental, doing things biologically, environmentally, and socially responsible. Yeah. So we're increasing, we're going to have good employees, train them well, pay them well, but also the local community as well, make them smart and knowledgeable about what we're doing. So it is part of that, I believe, corporate responsibility that we have as part of our governance. Many levels. Yeah. People were asking me, they saw all the ponds that, driving along the road, and said, how can we compete against those? Well, if you look at it on a per unit basis, production basis, and energy, all of that, it's a lot cheaper to do it in this system, which looks more complicated. It looks like it costs more energy, but actually on a per unit basis, it's a lot cheaper to do it in this system than it is out there. When you look at all the survival rates,
They just don't have the resources to do it.
Well, yeah, they don't have the resources. Most of the world right now, there's an evolution in the industry is going towards recirculation, because trying to raise animals out in ponds like that now, there's hardly anywhere that you can go with that's not going to be affected by disease.
Yeah.
And the trend is now going towards these indoor closed systems. problem with that is that a lot of people have invested a lot of infrastructure into the ponds, so they'll never change. There'll be groups that will never change. You go down to Ecuador, and there are shrimp ponds that are 10 hectares in size. There's no way you're going to cover that, and no way that you're going to, reinvest in that. It'll be very difficult to do. So those will go until they basically die. So the evolution is more and more going towards this recirculating type system. It's a more efficient way. Actually, it's a more environmentally friendly way, to do things. And